Hi, good morning everybody. Right, this is Bunny's Designs and hi to YouTubers. I want to show um, my watercolouring on a napkin. I found some napkins in Tesco's in the UK. And now that's the number. I don't think if it makes any difference if you could possibly find it. But I was most impressed because the first time I saw it I thought, well, watercolouring has to be watercolouring. So you do what you normally do is you take the two colours off. Sorry, you take the two backings off, and you end up with a very flimsy piece of napkin. And what I do is I leave that there. So I have my watercolours, which this is just plastic where you put a photograph in, and I've done certain things with it for different things I've used. But I'll just show this very quickly. This is the first attempt that worked quite well. But then I wanted to start thinking about light and shade and watercolouring flowers to make them look a little bit more realistic. And the second attempt was kind of trying to make them look a little bit more realistic and using more shade. So I thought I'd start from the beginning, and I'm using these fabulous Hydrus watercolours, fine art watercolours. It's all liquid in there, it's all paint. And just, you will see, I have just put a drop of each colour onto my little book, and then when I've shut it, because I left it about a day to shut, but I shut it, it's smidged on the other side. But that means that I have the same colours at either side. And they're not going to smudge together as long as I just shut that and then open it again. So I work with a 10-0, which is quite fine, and a 5-0. And these are riggers, these are a little bit longer. And at the moment I'm using this little dish here. But when I go out, I use this, which is quite diddy. And all I need is that. And if I spill it, because I've got arthritis and I tend to spill things, if I spill it, I'm spilling a teaspoon of water. Sometimes I have a little bit bigger pot, this one. I quite like this one, it's filthy at the moment. And this one gives me, I would say there's about a tablespoon in that one. I quite like using that one, so I'll probably use that one today. And that means that if I do spill that in the car, I have a tablespoon of water kicking about the car, which is going to dry. So when you put your brushes in, and I always twist mine to get it back to a nice point. And the other trick I have is either a makeup sponge I keep handy, or a piece of kitchen roll. So if I just put this behind here, it's dry, so it's not going to damage anything else. And what it means is if I want to just twist, I can take it back to a point. I think this is the one that's damaged because I kind of use them quite a lot. So if I look in my magic little box, I should have another one. This is quite a nice one because it holds quite a lot of water. In fact, I might use that one actually as well. And that one is a 0, that's a 2, and this is a 0. But because they are riggers, you still have quite a lot of water at the top end, it's damp. But I work very dry. This only works if you work dry. Yes, that's the one that's not damaged. I'll keep that for something else. So, in fact, because that one's dark, that's the one I've been using, that's a 10-0 as well. So I shall just put these, I mean you can use this little dish, it's a bit dirty, but if I put it there, and I'll put the napkin down, and then of course if I dribble that's fine, because what I'm doing is, oops, got little dish with water in and a napkin, so that's going there. And I have my colours here and the sponge. I don't often use the sponge, so let's just... So you want wet but not too wet, so damp. I would say damp. You don't want anything to fall off there. 2 reasons. This is like blotting paper, so it will smudge and it will run. Anything you drop on there will run. So what I will probably do is just hold these for a minute, because I can't hold them for long because my hand hurts. And I will just, I need to take my glasses off as well, so I apologise if there's any chats because I can't see, so I have to keep stopping to peer. Oh dear, I do apologise. Hi, is that Petka? Oh, Anita, I do apologise. Anita, sorry, I just put my glasses on. Hi, I hope you find this interesting. I'm watercolouring on a napkin. So you can do it with any watercolour that's not too wet. So you can use Intense, or you can use, I'm using the Hydrus at the moment. So welcome to Bunny's Designs. It's a bit of a madhouse round here because we're waiting for some new flooring down, and so we've to move all the furniture. And there's a little dog scrattling around as well, so it's a bit potty. You love watercolouring, right? So how I use it on the napkin is very, very dry, not like traditional watercolours where you on a traditional watercolour you will put your paper down, and then we used to have to stick it down with tape and then wet it and let it dry, so that when you then went into watercolouring it wouldn't shrink or curl up or buckle. So I use, my way of working is really, really dry, just barely damp. So because I've put a drop of these Hydrus watercolours, which are very intense in colour, they're wonderful, I've just put a drop on each side, and it's dried because I did this weeks ago. So if I just touch this, I can use the spare bit as a palette. So all I'm doing is teasing colour out. And what I may do is I'll just touch that yellow because I want to make an unusual green. The only thing you've got to make sure is that you make enough colour for the leaves you are going to do. If I was to do all these leaves together, I'd have to make a really nice amount. So I need to take my glasses off to see what I'm doing now. So I've made the green, and it is a fairly wet, but I'm kind of using it just damp, so the paintbrush is just holding its own. And then if you just drop it, just have to make sure that I'm in frame, so I'll do that leaf. So if I just drop that in, and the beauty of this is because this is a white napkin, you don't need a lot of colour, and you get the really nice watercolouring effects. So you'll have to bear with me. It's a new headset I've bought because I didn't like my voice on the... I don't like my voice anyway, but it's rather squeaky when it was coming through. So if I just move that to the side, you get quite a nice watercolour effect. Now it's not a very vivid colour because I was thinking about doing very muted colours, which is easy to do with these watercolours because they're very vibrant. But if we wanted to go a bit darker, I'll leave that there so you can see what I'm doing. And then I've actually just touched. I've touched the yellow and a touch of so I've got a nice orange there. So the other thing to do, is I always have a little spare piece of paper, normally photo paper, and I just touch the edge, just so that I can just see if I like the colour. If I like the colour, and if it's the right consistency, because I say these are quite damp. So I think what I may do is move that to this flower. So I normally start in the middle and I just drop colour in. And as I say, because it is a napkin, you just need to just tap just short of the line. Because if you actually go on to the line as normal, as you would normally colouring in, your colour will spread. Because basically it's a napkin and it's like blotting paper. So I just tease that colour forward and then let it dry a little bit. And it looks like that. And it does go through a little bit, but not very much because you're not working very wet. If I just dumped that into the pot of water and touched it, it would spread everywhere. So you've got to work fairly dry. And this kind of watercolouring, because there is hardly anything on the brush, that lends itself to be able to just tap the brush and the watercolour spreads around. And the other thing is, it's so easy on your hands, because I have arthritis and I can't colour in when you have to hold a paintbrush or a pencil or a pen and scribble. I don't have any strength in my hand, so I just have been able to just gently stroke the petals. And I do this for other watercolourings as well. I mean, I've been colouring this young lady in, and I'm using the same colours, but I use them slightly differently. I can touch the red, and again I practice on the end there, and it's the same red, but it's not as watered down. And then I can choose a small flower and just gently stroke the colour in. You have a little bit more control on this. This is photocopy paper, and again I like it because it doesn't go through, and if you make a mistake, you can photocopy it again and do it again and not make the same mistake. Because there's nothing worse than doing a nice one and then doing this really big flower here, which is why I thought, well, I might not want it bright red. So I just tend to stroke the colour in, and it's very easy. So I can actually colour in all day. I can do 2, 3, 4, 6 hours, and it doesn't matter, because I'm not putting any stress at all on my hand. And you can go darker inside if you want, or reconstitute the colour in there and tease it out a little bit so you've got a variegated petal. I hope this isn't too boring for you, Anita. Some people say it's like watching paint dry, and it is literally watching paint dry. I tried to get the camera up a little bit further, but I mean, if you do normal watercolouring, you can do all sorts. You can drop a tiny drop of purple into there as well, if you really wanted, and tease the colour out, because it's damp, it's just not very saturated, which you would normally do. So that's to show the difference. To then using the same colour, which was this pinky red, and this will be more vibrant, but it's just think it is rather flimsy, so you've got to be a bit careful, because obviously, so if I touched onto the side there, I can just double check and think, oh, that looks quite nice, and then just drop it in. I'm hopefully going to try and put this into a napkin journal. So even though, and the other thing I have done recently, you see, I went over the line there because I wasn't concentrating. But if I make a real mess, I can just start again. You do have to concentrate. It's different when you're rushing and you're on screen, and you've got to be kind of quick. But obviously when you're at home, you get comfortable, you know your own paints, you know what colours they are, you know how vibrant they are. I mean, this is the first time I've used this colour on this type of on this napkin, and again, I've only done this a couple of times, so it's bound to, it's a learning curve. I thought about doing different colours, but it's just quite, it is again therapeutic. It's like it's just like watercolouring, you know, colouring in. I mean, I designed watercolouring because I can't colour in with a pen or a pencil, but I can watercolour. And so I thought if I called it watercolouring, people would know that you're actually colouring in something, but you're using watercolours instead. If you were doing this on a normal page, I sometimes use it like a traditional way. I will dampen. In fact, I could try that and see if it works. We'll try that. So we'll use a wet brush, and I'll use a small flower, and I'll just gently stroke with water, and then I'll use the fine brush. So I shall do that again with plain water, just gently. You see, it won't work because already it's spread right round there. So the minute I touch that, the purple will run. The purple will run and it will go outside the line. So it will not react like a normal watercolour. So that was the practice. That purple will keep running wherever it's damp. So that didn't work. So at least we tried it, didn't work. But because I've got purple on here, I shall just carry on and I'll do that. So as long as you stroke just within the line, then you can tease your colour out. And I don't find it any more difficult by adding a drop of water to the palette to make a paler colour. So if I colour that in really pale, if you put that on that is quite pale. So if I do that again, I can just touch, and again, you don't want to, if you have too much on your brush, it will spread about and it will go outside the line. So you have to work fairly, I would say damp, but not wet. So if I go back to my other colour, that's why a small brush is quite good, because you have a lot of control and you are just dropping colour in. And I've kind of done these all the same, so what I may do is drop a different colour in and see what happens. So if I take the next paintbrush, and so if you have any questions or if you want to know anything, do fire away. It might take me a moment before I catch them, so if I just put that inside. That's made it a little bit darker. So you probably have to just think a bit more. So you probably have to think, well, inside under that leaf there is going to be darker, but then on the end it's going to be paler. So you're going to have to physically make it paler by adding water to your palette. But you can still get quite a nice effect. You'll have to excuse my lighting. I had a bit of an avalanche about 5 minutes ago and everything fell off. So it's still wet and it's damp on there, but when that dries, that should look quite nice. Now again, because I've got arthritis, I kind of turn my page round with me as I go. So you have to be a little bit careful, because it is delicate, because of course it's now a single layer of tissue, so it is quite delicate. But it is a very calming way of working, I think. And it's a little bit different. And you're creating something quite unique, especially if you're drawing your own colours. So I'll finish the flower, and then what I may do is experiment with doing my own colours. Oh, that was the wrong way around. So what I needed to do is to water that down rather. But even though you've watered it down, you've got to still keep it fairly damp, because otherwise the colour will just run. Now this is very dark, this. But you can tease the colour out that way. And although that doesn't look very pink, when it dries, it will look quite pink. Just bear with me, I'll put my glasses on so I can see. Well, I didn't think of using a napkin. It was just the fact that seeing the packet, I just decided to use napkins, and I wanted to, I thought I'd have a go. And as I say, because I found these in Tesco's, and I just thought instantly they have to be coloured in. And because I work fairly dry, I thought it would work. But I mean, I'm sure there are lots of other designs that are on napkins that are just purely black and white, especially Christmas. I mean, I would think these look quite pretty, especially when you've done them yourself, because there's no reason why I don't think you can't put them back together. If you kind of had a very fine spray glue, or just glued the edges very, very carefully, I don't think there's any reason why you can't put it back as a serviette. I mean, they would be wasted. I mean, but having said that, it takes you probably maybe a colouring session. You could quite easily do this a couple of hours, because it is very quick. That's the other lovely thing about it. It's really, really quick. Once you decide what you're doing, if you're doing flat colours, and you're just kind of teasing out the colour there, you've done one in a couple of seconds. And because you've still got quite a lot of colour, you can just go on to the next one. And then again, you get the variegated leaves, so you get the stronger ones in the middle and the paler ones, because all that's happening is that little bit of pigment at the end is getting more water down. So you're teasing and teasing out more colour every time you use the brush without adding water. You're just keeping it quite damp. And then you get the most beautiful pale pinks that would be really difficult to get on a palette, especially with these vibrant colours. Another way of doing it is you've just got to be careful not to touch your water palette, because obviously it's going to absorb it. I've got quite a lot of colour on there, so being a tight Yorkshire lass, I don't want to get rid of that. Another way of working would be, if you bear with me 2 seconds, I have these Neocolour 2s, Caran d'Ache, and again they lend themselves to this kind because you just damp. So what you would do is, these are rather large, you can work 2 ways. Either you could take, let's have a nice orangey red, so you could take the crayon, and this is how I worked across Europe for years. I've been doing this on and off for the last 20 odd years. Is on a train I would take the crayon, and I would take a brush, and I used to have a tube, and I'd hold it in my hand like this. So I would get the water, and I would touch the crayon, and because these are so vibrant, again, these are really good quality Caran d'Ache Neocolour 2 watercolours, and I would then just start colouring. And these are quite vibrant. These colours are quite vibrant. But you can just, as long as your brush isn't too damp, you can use any type of colour you want. You'll have to bear with me, I've got my glasses on. So if I've got my glasses on, I can see each chart, but then I can't see what I'm doing, so I better take them off. So that's another way of working. The other way, which I use these Neocolour 2s, now that is damp and it's wet, but I'm going to shut it because it'll be fine. I have 500 colours, nearly 600 in this one once I've finished. I have the peerless colours. And again, the peerless colours are lovely because you just, with a damp brush, you touch the corner and you start to colour. If I pick a different flower, and you just start to colour. And of course the peerless watercolours are very vibrant, so you don't need very much, and again you work quite dry. All you're doing is just tapping colour, which doesn't put any pressure on your hand, and you can get some really nice effects. And all you're doing is touching the colour. All I did there was just gently put a drop of water on the end, and I've still got quite a lot of, that's how I get the pale pinks, by just touching the water again. And because the pigment's on the end of the paintbrush, you've still got quite a lot of colour in there, and so you can just keep teasing it down. I'll do another one so you can see, because that looked rather strange. So I'll clean the brush and I'll touch the colour, and then I'll just drop in the middle, I'll drop it in there, and that's very, very dark and very vibrant. And then if I just touch the end of the paintbrush to just give a tiny drop of water and then just tease that out, I still have some colour in there. Oh, I don't have that many at this time, I didn't get it. If you add too much water, it runs, but if you're used to it and you can control it, then you can use any colour, any pigment you want. I was going to show you the Caran d'Ache are actually in here. I've got Derwent, Inktense. The Derwent watercolour pencils work really well on here as well. And the other thing is you don't have to do too much with your water. So this is one of my favourite colours, Geranium Lake from Derwent. And you can, as I call it, reconstitute it back into watercolour. There's quite a lot of colour on the end of there, and then you can just start to colour in. And these are just the Derwent watercolour pencils, but you have a lot of control when you paint this way. You can paint very fine. And I found with these new colouring books that you really need to be quite fine. You have to forgive me, I'm looking for something. Where on earth did I put it? I think it's in. I think it's in another bag. Oh, don't know what I'm doing with it. I cannot find anything. I always think I'm really well organised, and then everything goes to pot. But I do have this. I found this for colouring in. And again, I photocopy these because I tend to make a lot of mistakes. I drop things because my hands don't work very well. But to get into these little tiny spaces, you do need a small paintbrush. I mean, you could actually paint every single thing in there, because, I mean, the paintbrush will lend itself to that. You can actually control every little tiny bit, and I think that's really, really nice. And I do work quite fine. Now, some people, it might drive them insane, but that's how I like to work. I do work quite dry, but again, all you're doing is just dropping a small amount in, and that's what makes it really easy. And really, I mean, this goes everywhere. It's been all over Europe. It lives in my handbag. So I've still got quite a lot of colour on there now. So if I just touch that, I should be able to finish this flower. And of course, I've got the 72 in here. So instead of taking, I've got the lovely box with 72 Derwent pencils in. put too much water on there and it ran, you see. So you get used to how much you can put in. If you're more careful, you don't rush it like I'm doing. And the other thing I love about my little book is they're the Inktense. Is apart from the Derwent Graffy tint, which are quite muted, I mix every colour together. So they're Faber-Castell. They're the Faber-Castell crayons, watercolour blocks. I have the Gansai Tambi watercolours, full set 36, and they are beautiful. Again, I'll show them. I don't normally waste colour, but I'll show you the colours. These are beautiful. And because it's a watercolour, when that dries, all that colour is saved, it's not wasted. So there's a lot of pigment on there. Oh, sorry, the cats, it's feeding time at the zoo. So, let me have a look for something. Let me think what I can do with this one. I'll do the inside of this flower here. Don't know if you can see that, I hope I haven't. Oh, you'll have to forgive me. If my phone has a message, it kicks me out. So I'm really sorry, I just have to we had this problem last time. And it's so annoying, but, we're back. I think that might be better. So, sorry about that. So what I was going to show you was, I don't know where it disappeared to. In my little book, I have the Gansai Tambi watercolours, the Curita, and they are very beautiful watercolours as well. They are really fine. I've got the Faber-Castell, I've got the Caran d'Ache Neocolour 2s. Now there's about 100 colours in that series. If I got every one, I would have over 600 colours in here. But to carry them all around, I think it's about a suitcase. Peerless. That's what originally gave me the idea. Although I did see about 30 years ago, a gentleman called David Cook used demonstrated the Derwent watercolour pencils, and he had the box of pencils, that's why I bought them, but he wanted to take them out to draw, so he sketched some squares at the back of his sketchbook, and that's what gave me the idea to do this. And so I have the 72 Inktense. I have some watercolour sketching pencils. And just recently I found all these in my stash that's kind of appeared from nowhere. There's a Lakeland one, and if it has a water brush mark on it, and it's quite good quality, then there's a Faber-Castell. That's an early learning one, but I was going to try it anyway. What else have I found? There's a Stedler one. Now that might not work, but I found, what were the other ones that I found? I found some other ones. Faber-Castell, I think, was this one. That's a Caran d'Ache one, but if it has a watermark on it, then I would use it. Inscribe Aquella pencil. It has a paintbrush on it, which means that that's watercolour. It's a watercolour paintbrush. So my idea is to make these little squares in my little book, and then I can paint on anything. And I've proved that you can actually colour on whatever you like. So I think I was using something or other, a purple, wasn't I? So I might do that purple, I think. I do like to think about what I'm doing. I don't just kind of mindlessly start colouring in. But the Derwent pencils and the Derwent Inktense, again, are wonderful pencils, and because the pigment in them is really good, then it lends itself to this kind of drawing and watercolouring. If you were doing huge paintings, it wouldn't last you long. But this has been going 2 years, so all I did is I found the colour, because I always label which colour it is and give it a number, so that I just have to go to the Derwent pencils, pick that colour, make sure there's that number, and scribble over the top. And that's what I did. I made a video about it, how I revamped them, because I'd had this 2 years. And I made them in separate ones because I thought these would go to mush, because it's just sketching paper, it's not watercolour. But actually, if you don't wet it too much, these look like as good as the day that I made them. And the same with the Caran d'Ache. I'd used quite a lot of colours, so again I just got the colour out and scribbled over the top. The blue one there seems to, when it goes very pale, it means there's not much colour left on it. So sorry about that. Kind of digressed a bit and got off what I was doing. So back onto the serviette. So what I might do in a minute is, you'll have to forgive me, the puppy's coming through. Here's the puppy. He chews his paw, so he's got a cone on his head, and he rattles about the house. Bless him. Yes. No, I don't know where he's gone now. Yes, it must be tea time, bless him, so he's come to see. He makes such a fuss, really. Now, if you notice that I put a bit too much water on that one, but as long as you stop well short of the line, you can learn to fill in like that. I'm holding a dog's paw with one hand and painting with the other, because he has to have attention. He's a rescued King Charles Spaniel, and he's potty. So I hope that was interesting, Anita, and I'm really sorry, but I'm screwing my face up. I can't see a thing. Oh, yes, now I have a puppy on my knee, nearly. I shall have to shout at somebody and put him in another room. Oh, I said put too much water in there, and it's leaked across, because I wasn't concentrating on what I was doing, and I'm rushing. It doesn't do to rush, because if you rush, you make a mess. But as I say, it was I think £1.50, £2 for the napkins. I don't actually know what I'm going to do with them when I've finished, but I do like the darker ones, and then when you put them back onto a white background, they kind of pop and show up some lovely colours again. You just have to be really careful you don't touch your water pot, because obviously it's going to... Sorry, I need to have to put my glasses on. Oh, was that okay? Oh, I hope I kind of waffle quite a lot. Yeah, or try and stroke a puppy with the other hand either. That's a mistake to do, bless him. He's terribly distracting. He's so cute, bless him, but he's so naughty. But he is rescued, and he was my neighbour's dog, bless her, and she couldn't. She had changed jobs, and so he ended up being with another dog on his own quite a lot. So of course, he just thinks the entire world evolves around him. Because those colours were quite intense, I washed the colours out into there, and that's what I've got. So let's just see if I can colour with these and get a pale colour. Now, it's a fine line between a wet brush and colour, and maybe that's just, I mean, it's very, very pale, is that? But if you can just kind of dry it off a bit, because as a tight Yorkshire lass, I hate to waste paint. And I'll hold this up and see if it's done well. I mean, I think that is a real pretty pale, delicate pink that you can only just see, but it is there. But there's no reason why I can't. It wasn't that one. I think it was that's the only thing I do forget. I forget where I am in here, but I think it was the geranium pink, which is a lovely colour. So in theory, if I can just tease more colour into there, This would be good for variegated leaves on ivy. That would be quite good, I think. Sorry, my puppy has to bark. I apologise. Did I say a moose? You have a moose running around your neck. A mouse, sorry. Eyesight, sorry. Oh, wow. Yes, love one of those, but two cats about. That's. I mean, one of the cats was in. Oh, she is in the corner behind me. Oh, she brings lots of mice in the house. We try and actually save them, but I end up with them running around the lounge because for some reason she likes to catch them, but she doesn't do anything to them. If you catch them quick enough, she just likes to watch them run round before she kills them. So if you're quick enough, you can save them. So I'll have to just move that down to chat. I'll put my glasses on now. Stephenus mouse. Well, I have a toffee cat because she looks like a chewed toffee. She was rescued at Filey. All the animals are rescued, so they're all potty. I have a King Charles Spaniel. I have a Lurcher that was found running around the road, and I have a Heinz 57 little black and white dog. I'm just going to have a drink, so I can only drink water, not gin and tonic. Too early. That's fine, honestly. Bless him, hubby's just decided that I said to me, keep the water coming in case I'm chatting too much. Oops. I'll put my glasses back on. Where did I put my glasses now? Oh dear. I thought if I had this on my phone I'd be able to see the chat better, but I can't see. I think pets do. I've seen photographs of. We have a parrot as well, but I think there's a photograph of somebody's parrot actually sitting and walking about. Most pets do, don't they? They like human contact. Most domestic animals. It's like the rabbits are inside as well. I have a disabled rabbit, and I was actually, because I call this Bunny Designs, I was actually going to have him about. Because he doesn't run anywhere, he just sits next to me. I've dropped my paintbrush on the floor. He just sits next to me, and it's the sound of my voice. He had a problem with his brain, and so he's kind of lopsided. We tell everybody that his head's not screwed on right, but he kind of fits in this family quite well. So I might do a larger one. I did like the orange. See, now they've dried, you can see the colours that bit better. Just have to move that down slightly. So they do look quite delicate. And I do like doing different greens as well, different leaves. I like some made up ones. And the purple looks quite nice as well. I'm not sure what flowers these are. I was originally going to look and do them, and I love that colour. It's my favourite colour at the moment. What else was I going to say? This is the one I did earlier. Whoops! You see, I've just touched that in that pink water, and being a serviette, it's kind of absorbed it. But they were the other colours that I liked. So I do like some of the leaves. I like doing them different greens. Oh, thank you. I like doing different colours as well. I don't think I'd want to do all flowers all the same colours. Even though there's only probably 3 different flowers on there. I think I like them all to be different. The thing with the serviette is it's difficult because this is the one I did earlier, and I did this on doesn't spill my water. I did this one on, if I zoom out a smidgen, will it let me kind of, oops, sorry about that. No, it won't let me. I think I've just frozen it now. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, it's fine. It won't let me. I managed to do some quite lemony lemons and then some warmer ones. But some of them are quite difficult. I'll just take my glasses off now so I'm as blind as a bat. Right. So I shall carry on with that. Oh, what I was going to show you is another trick that I did. I started. Don't think I did it with this. I found a serviette, and when I paint, I draw with a very. But do tell me if you want me to carry on with the watercolour rather than. Now this may not work on this one. I did it. I have a bag somewhere. I did it in a bag. No, that's not it. So what my idea was, if I find my other pen, I have two different pens that I use, like for line drawing, because I do like line drawings. This is how I like to draw, and so it lends itself quite nicely for it lends itself quite well. I just need to find my little pen, and I shall just have an experiment to see if we can draw on this. So that's what I normally do. So my idea, if I turn that over, is to take a serviette and draw a design on it. It would depend on which pen, because that runs straight away. And it can't be too rough because it will poke a hole in it. So it has to be quite smooth. So I thought this would, because then you can draw any design you like. Now I normally I do rectangles, and I kind of, this is my design I did when I was about 16, and I've been using it ever since, a lot older than 16. So I don't know if you can see that. Thank you. Yeah, I do like line drawings, I have to say. So I've just thought I quite like drawing. There is a time lapse on this, isn't there? So if I do another one. And this is a design that I quite like. As I've been using this for lots and lots of years. I was hoping to put them on my website so that people could download them for free and then just start colouring them in. So I have a little bit of a flower there. But I'm not sure what the water will do to the... Oops! See, if you're not careful, you catch the pen. And then... But in theory, as long as you're really careful, just skim the top of it. In theory, you could then touch the same geranium pink. Just want to make sure that I'm in free. And it does go through, the pen's gone through, so you've got to be a little bit careful. But I just thought it was a bit more unusual, colouring in. And then that's a little bit more, that's wetter than I normally work, but it's still only damp, it's not saturated. And then just gently drop that in. Then that's kind of coloured itself in. And being a little bit braver, and this is a wetter brush and you can see it does run, so you just stop short of the line and tease it gently right up to the line. In theory you can draw any. Now this pen, I love this pen, although I do normally use a line drawing pen, but I can't use that because I know for a fact that will snag. I love this. It's an isograph pen, and I normally do all sorts with this one. I think I've got white paint in that one actually. But these are fantastic. And the other thing is you refill them with permanent Indian ink, so if you want to draw on anything. But I don't think they will work on here because some sketchbooks, if you catch them, it's a very fine wire basically inside a tube. It's not like this one, but this is the next best thing, which is the Pilot G-Tech C4, and I don't think it's permanent, but it will allow you to obviously draw on that, and it hasn't run too much. As long as you don't actually touch it, you should be fine. So it can be a little bit wet as long as you just make sure that you don't go up to the line, because I've actually gone up to the line and it smudged it, so I should have been a bit. Oh, right, just bear with me 2 seconds. It kicks me out every time I get a message, which is not nice at all, and it's so annoying, so sorry about that. Here we are, we're back again. So what I was showing was I did the first one, okay, and then I decided to get a bit bolder and I touched it, so it's actually smudged the black, because this pen isn't. This is the G-Tech C4, and it's not waterproof, but because I've allowed it to dry enough before I've touched it, it worked. But one thing you've got to do is to make, oh sorry about that, is you've got to make sure that you don't go up to the line, because if you do, it will definitely that would work, that one. So if I take that, so the beauty of this is you can do this on your knee. I mean, I'm on one of these cushion trays, and I love it because I'm not very well sometimes. Today I'm actually at the desk, but sometimes I'm not well enough to sit here, and I can sit on the sofa and just. Now you've got to bear in mind that you do have a black line around this. Oops. Yeah, it doesn't work very wet, because if you work too wet, but it was an experiment. So if you do a dryish paintbrush, it won't bleed, but if you touch it right to the edge, it smudges it. But I wanted to experiment with that, so that means that I can actually draw my own designs on there and colour them in. And I quite like the idea of these delicate, just a delicate way of working. Not as boring as paper. Yes, the first one didn't. The little red one didn't. If you can see that one, I just have to put my camera up so I can see. The first one didn't actually bleed at all. But because I went back into a wet paintbrush, instead of doing it properly, it didn't. So it's like anything, you've got to concentrate. I'm kind of rushing a little bit, but if you get a decent amount of what I would call flat colour, and then just drop it in, that's maybe too dry, just a smidgen wetter. Nope, that's not wet enough. So it's a fine line between. It would take a lot of practice, but as I say, this is the first time I've ever done it. Now I said I did go over the line on that one. So I have too much paint on the paintbrush. If I touch that one, I've got more control now. But it's only an experiment. I might find a better way of working. I'm sure you can colour it in with. I would think marker would be quite good. I couldn't do that because I say I can't struggle with scrubbing with a pinch. I can just dab. Whoops, and that was too wet, so that will go. So when I was careful, it was okay. And then when I rushed it at the last minute. But the red one didn't bleed at all. So I think we might have to. I might go back to the palest because it was. I think it was this one. You work quite dry with the palest, I think. So if we just dampen a brush, we'll see if this works better. I think you've just got to be a little bit more patient, and you've got to watch what you're doing and work fairly dry. But again, this is quite nice, and see, that was a bit too wet. As soon as you touch, you know how wet you've got to be. Teasing that now up to the line. It is possible. It's tricky, but it's possible. But I think that's quite amazing because you can put any design you like of your own. You've just got to get it exactly right, because it's not forgiving. So you've got to kind of really just tease that colour, because if you rush it, it's going to go into the black, and then it will smudge. Now, maybe if I got a black pen that was permanent. I'll try that in a second. I'll try a permanent black pen. Because obviously any pen, if you touch it with a wet thing, it's going to bleed through. Because it's not permanent. But the trick is to tease the colour just short of the black line. And then when it gets to the black line, it stops. but it is quite tricky work, but I think that's kind of worked. It hasn't gone over, but so that's an experiment. So what I might do now is look for my pen. Now this is one of the finest ones they do. This is a .18. Sorry, my little puppy's trotting in and out. So this is quite a fine pen. And if I just do a got to be a little bit careful with these, because basically it's a tube. It's the reverse of this. It's a tube with a piece of wire sticking out the bottom. So the ink drips off a very fine piece of wire, and it's the wire that scratches across the surface. You can feel it as you draw, but they are very, very fine, and they're wonderful for drawing. It is a lovely fine line, and because draftsmen use it, but I really don't think it's going to work on here. It's going to be a miracle if it does, because it's a scratchy surface, and I'm pretty sure it'll snag straight away, but we'll try it. So if we try and keep that taut and just drop it in, and because it's ink, it's actually not going to work. Not unless you want a feathered, because it's ink, so it's just. Now, that's bled on its own accord, but once that's dry, it won't bleed anymore. But that failed, but I'm sure there's a way of doing it. So if I go back to the other one, but this is the one I normally do all my designs with. So let me just go back to this one. Gone back to a near colour too, and I think you've got to have kind of a full brush. Yeah, see, that won't work because it's too. It's got to be kind of. I think we'll go back to the original things that I had, which was the traditional watercolours. Well, I say traditional. What did I call them? The Hydrus, pH Hydrus watercolours. And we'll have a pink. Seems to be a bit more control over there, and then you can use quite vivid colours because obviously you're not using a lot of water. I think the trick is not to use a lot of water. This is too much there. What you need to do is to saturate your colour, but still have it quite and just tease it just short of the, and let the tissue work its way. And then you can go a little bit faster in the inside. Oops, I thought it was the wrong one. It's the same colour. You can tell as you start how far it's going to go and where it's going to stop. So this is quite fiddly, but if you wanted to do a design, and I think you'd have to keep moving it as well because you've got your paint under here. But this is a real fine, it's more of a handkerchief one than a serviette. So I did have a serviette, and it did kind of work slightly better. I only drew on it, but I didn't colour it in. So I think it's the case case of just teasing the colour. But this is something you definitely can't rush. But I think it's quite interesting. It isn't as delicate as the ones that are already drawn, but this is a mix that you can use your own unique design. I've just thought of something. I think this pen is permanent, so we'll try that one. Pretty sure that's permanent. It'll be a bigger line, I think. Yeah, it's the same as the other one because it's a flowing ink pen. I don't think it'll work straight. No, it tears it. So it's not going to work. It was an experiment. Oops. So, oh, dear, I dropped that. So if I find a permanent pen, oh, I know what I have got. Yes, I know what I've got. Just have to bear with me 2 seconds. I just have to pick up this top because if I don't, I'll forget. So the next thing to do is to look in my magic box, and I do have the other pen that I do have tons and tons of rubbish in here. Honestly, let me have a look. There is. But I think it's the same. If it's a fast flowing one, isn't at least permanent. The Uni Pen Fine. There we go. We've got a Uni Pen Fine. So this is the last go. Sorry if you find this so boring. I'm really sorry if you think it's too boring. I've just got to get it out of my system. So we'll have another go. So let's see if this one will just do what it's supposed to do. But I suppose if it was easy, everybody would want to do it, wouldn't they? It's not quite as bad. I think I need a bit more practice. And because it's a pen, it's not fresh inks, it's not running around. It's just kind of sitting there. So it's had a minute or two to dry. I'm not sure if the 0.5 is the smallest one. I would think it probably is, because I'm a bit of a fanatic about having the finest pens, the finest nibs. So let's see. Pebble. And that smudge of paint is just reconstituting back into really nice paint. I'm sorry, it's feeding time at the zoo. So we have a permanent. Oh, sorry, my stomach. We have a Uni Pen Fine Line, waterproof and fade-proof permanent ink, and we have the Hydrus colours. So if we kind of drop colour. Oh, yes, sorry, feeding time at the zoo. There is. Oh, I don't know where she's gone. There is a cat on the move. So if we just drop this deep colour into there. I don't really like that colour, it's a bit too dark. I'll go back to the pink. And I'll just test it, see if, so you need it just that little bit. Runny but not too runny, so if we just drop the colour in. Whoops! Avalanche. it seems to have behaved itself a little bit. Don't know if you can see that. So it does work. It's very fiddly, I have to say. It's nothing you can do when you're on the bus or the train, but it does work. So a bit more practice and a little bit more practice. The other thing I thought about doing is to draw it while it's still a normal napkin. If to draw while it's still a normal napkin, but I digress. So we'll go back to our little, because we know this works. So this is the one I started this morning. And I shall concentrate on some petals, I think. If I just open this up, there's some nice colours on here. Oh dear, no, I've got a clue what that was, but hey ho. Right, so again, you really have to just have a look at your colours, and then when you drop the colour in, it's very similar. You've still got to watch that you know that it is going to go up to that colour, up to that line, sorry. And then it will dry a little bit. And I found a nice, when you start making lots and lots of colours, because it's watercolour, there actually are some quite nice ones. So again, just touch on the side. That's made a bit browny. Let's have a look for a bit more brown. It's a bit pinky, that onto brown. Well, let's have a put some blue to that. That's made a bit of a purpley one. Quite like that because that's like a really shaded purple. Let me have a look. What are the colours we need? I really need an orangey red and I don't really have one. So I shall have to make can't think I've got a brown on there either. I should have, but I haven't. That'll probably be a bit of a pinky one. It's not too bad. It's not the pale brown that I wanted, but it's a bark colour really, more than a green leaf. But it'll just give the stem a bit of... And sometimes on roses anyway, they're not green. It's a bit too purple, is that one? I do want an orangey brown, if I can get an orangey brown. Oh, here he goes, bless him. It's his barky time. That might be a little bit better. Yes, it's a little bit better. So you don't really have to touch much for it to kind of spread about quite a lot. So I'll just carry on for a few more minutes and then I'll do something else, if that's okay. Just have to just see. Yeah, because I think I broke Ustream last week when I went on it. So I want some more greens. Have a look. I do like the dirty, smudgy greens. I quite like some of these. I'll do this one somewhere else. I do like them. Have them in frame. Oops. But again, it's just quite nice to drop. It's quite a dark green, that. Some of the roses, though, the tea roses, the British tea roses, that are more of a shrub, they do seem to be quite dark, whereas what we call the dog roses, the ones that are, it's not really a green at all now though, is it really? It's kind of, the thing is you can play, oh dear, I do apologise. Somebody's obviously sat on the dog bed. If somebody's sat somewhere and somebody else wants to sit there, then it's just murder in the house. So, there's some unusual colours. I suppose because it's a serviette, you could do green flowers and purple leaves if you really wanted. I suppose you could do anything you wanted. The only thing to remember is that if you are doing a lot of green leaves that are the same, you need to make a lot of your colour, because it's very difficult to make the same colour again. If you're making your own greens up, I mean, if you get them straight out of the tube, you're okay. But if you're making your own greens up, you need to make enough of the same green. Otherwise, you will have different colour greens. Now, I tend to have done that a little bit too wet. But I do tend to change the colour slightly anyway for the next leaf. Oops. And don't get a hair on that doesn't help either. So I shall finish this leaf and then I'll stop the recording, and if you want to see anything else, give me a shout. It was a bit of a fail, but it wasn't an epic fail, was it? If you're not too careful, you can go over this one as well, and it will do the same. You've just got to be. It is quite delicate work, but you know, if you can't, you couldn't do this with a pencil for two reasons. One is it would go straight through the paper. And it's, I don't think you can work delicately. I mean, I know some pencils are lovely, and they just glide across the paper. My daughter's just, my husband bought me some pencils, and I couldn't use them, and so I gave them to my daughter. And with being stressed with exams, I bought her this beautiful book. And she picked up the pencils and then sat watching TV and did that. And I was rather sick because I couldn't believe she did that. And I just thought, well, she has more colour sense than I have, so puts my meagre little dirty greens to shame. Don't you hate it when your children outdo you? She did that with a line drawing as well. I've been drawing line drawings for 40 years, and she comes along, 16 years old, and completely blows mine out of the way. So I wasn't very happy with that either. Well, I am, because she's my daughter, but the only thing she did say was, "Mother, you taught as well." So there we go. So I hope you didn't find that too boring. I shall. The other thing to do is always remember what colour we're using, because I think I can't remember what colour that one was now. It wasn't one that I'd made up. I know that. I do love these. If you like watercolours, Anita, have you seen these? Gansai Tambi watercolours. These are amazing, but I can't even hold the box. It really hurts me to hold the box. But the gold is a real nice goldy colour, but they are amazing. And the pigment on them is wonderful as well. But I can show that. And I can probably be a bit wetter. these are very vibrant, and the pigment in them is, I think somebody said that they take a week to dry when they're making them. But I can't hold them very well, even though they're in pans. And I didn't want to take this out with me, even though it's only about an A4. I didn't want to take it out, so what I did is I wet the palette with a fat paintbrush and scooped the paint out, and then kind of daubed it on. And then I scooped it again and daubed it on, so there's about 4 layers on there, because I can't hold that very well. And so that made a big fat puddle. Don't know if you can see that. And so that made me get in just that space. Oops. Now I shut that when it was wet, when I did the purple one, but it doesn't matter because it's plastic. So 2 things will happen. It will never smudge that, and it will just dry. And this is a palette, so you have a palette on every page. The other thing to remember is don't mix other colours on there and then shut it, because then they will contaminate each other. But as long as there's nothing on the palette when you shut it, and every page has got that. But I just thought that was amazing that I've got all my Gansai Tambi watercolour, 36 colours in there, in a few millimetres. So I do love my little book. Now this is an experiment as well, which isn't brilliant. I haven't actually used this. So let's have a look at the green, because we need some green leaves. It's good quality. It's Winsor & Newton gouache, and I just squidged a bit out, and it's cracked, but it's still there. And again, this should work really well. Just tease it out a little bit. Vibrant colours. And if you remember just to stop short of the black line, you will have a traditional, almost pea green leaf. And there's a lot of colour in there because it's gouache, so it's very flat. So you can do the traditional colours if you want to make things really, really vibrant. But as I say, that was an experiment. So really, any good quality watercolours, if they will dry, you can get them into one of these. If it's pencil or if it's crayon, you scribble a square of it, and if it's liquid, you need to drop it onto the plastic. Did I drop it on the plastic? No, I didn't. I was going to try another one. You see, this is where it's dried here. So what I might do is just try this, because that is just making a palette. Now I couldn't really shut that because it would maybe go into the yellow, so I'll use all that. But because I've brought it to the other side now, I wonder why it's gone very dark, because I've lost a light. That's why one of the lights fell off. They have a mind of their own. That's maybe slightly better. It's maybe slightly better. Is that light brighter? Oh, maybe too bright. Pop that there. It gets nice consistency, and then just drop the colour in. I mean, that is very, very, very vibrant, very bright, is that? But it's a gouache. It's a Winsor & Newton gouache, so that will go very flat. This will be lovely for colouring things in a traditional colouring book. Very Disney, very flat. must admit, even though I'm indoors and these paints are just behind me. In fact, I just have to put that down because I just find holding things any length of time quite difficult. And then just tease that colour in. Now I haven't decided to do a background, but I could do a very dark background, and I might do that actually. I might try a very dark background just to see what it does. So thank you for watching, and bear with me 2 seconds. I've never heard of white nights. I've never heard of those. But I think anything, if you want to take them out. So I'll stop the video because I think YouTube, we have spot a bother trying to upload them, but I wonder if you can see that. So that hasn't bled too much, that, and it is probably more traditional coloured green. And that was the gouache that I say was just squidged in the tube, just enough to kind of make a blob. I did let those dry. Well, I didn't let them dry too much because they smudged to the other side. So I've got to be careful now, and I'll probably use all that green on here because I don't want to smudge that. I want to leave that kind of as best I can. Or let that dry first. They probably dry under the light. So if you I think I've got to say thank you for watching, and I'll stop the recording, but I'll keep broadcasting if that's okay, and then I'll do something else. So thank you for watching.